Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Well, you guys asked for it. This is part 2 of our unique attractions in Disney World. So without further ado, live from the Casa de Kincaid Studios in Mustang, Oklahoma, this is another edition of Midwest Reviews. Well, like we said, guys, this is the 5 unique attractions. This is part 2 of our series of unique attractions for Disney World. So, and this list is not in any particular order. We just jotted these down because it's, like we said in the first video, it's kind of hard to compare these to each other because they are unique and different. So, sir, what do we have first down on our list?
Okay, first on our list is an attraction that debuted December 17th, 1990. This was based on the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And what's unique about this attraction is it's not really a ride, but it's not even a theater attraction as well. This is actually called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Movie Set Adventure. What it basically is a big giant playground set to the backdrop of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So you basically feel like you have been shrunk down to microscopic size and you've been thrown into somebody's backyard. And what's really neat about it is there's all these really cool things that kids can do in there. Like, for instance, they can slide down an old film canister. They can do, what was it we were talking about earlier?
The dog from the movie. His nose is sticking to the deal and it smells. And
sniffs you. And so you get this sensation of almost like being sniffed by a life-size dog, by a gigantic dog. But they also
cookies there. The spider web.
Yeah, the cookies there. They have this gigantic mold of the cookie. They have Auntie the ant. They, I believe, have a Play-Doh set. They have a big giant water gun that shoots out water, along with a hose that shoots out water. And then you mentioned the spider web, which you had talked about it earlier as a kid that you remember doing that. And you said it was like a series of intricate ropes.
Yeah, basically that's all it was. It was just a series of intricate ropes, and I mean it's basically like a bunch of cargo netting, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, you know, with actual like.
But it is kind of themed like that because of the end of the rope attraction part of it. You do actually get to see like a spider. That's where you come out as this like gigantic spider web that's attached to these leaves or whatever. But so that was you know, one of those unique rides. Only as of April 2nd of this year, it is no longer there. It made a lot of kids, you know, feel happy, and you know, even adults made them feel like a kid again. So okay, so we're moving on to our next one, which is what?
It is the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. It showed you the elements of some of the greatest points in the movies, like him running away from the boulder scene. And before that, he crashes down. The very first thing you see is Indy rappelling from the ceiling, and then he walks through spears that shoot out of the ground, minefields and stuff. And I mean, they break down how everything is done, and it's really awesome. And I mean, the stunts are real because we watched a little behind-the-scenes deal, and whenever the stunt actors of you know, Indy and Marion, or whatever her name was, when they jump off the top of that building, that's a 30-some-odd foot drop. So they're really landing on, you know, and they said there's a specific way to land. And as stunt people, they should know that. So. Yep.
And that attraction is a theater attraction, if you haven't already guessed. And that debuted in 1989, August 25th, 1989 is when it debuted. So
anyway, alrighty, well, sir, this is another one that I think is really kind of interesting. The next one on our list, which is what?
Okay, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When this one debuted, October 14th, 1971. So this is a really neat ride because obviously, judging by the name, it's based off the book and the movie. With oh gosh,
James Mason was Captain Nemo.
James Mason
and Kirk
Douglas, yeah. And what's neat about the ride too is the narration is done by James Mason, so he is the one who does the narration for the ride. So you get into this Nautilus thing, and it you know, for its time, it was kind of neat, but nowadays it seems kind of small. But you get in, you're sitting in rows, and you're looking out portholes and things. Well, you got a guy in the middle who I guess is operating the thing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't notice that until watching a video of it today, that they actually have a guy who's operating the thing. But you're seeing the narration, you're seeing underwater, and they've done their own kind of style on it. You know, with the animatronics, they have like fishes on sticks, is what I would say, which is pretty much what they are. The only thing that I thought was neat was that they had clamshells that when they opened up, bubbles came out. So that was kind of neat. But the fish on the sticks just seemed kind of a little cheap. I mean, I know it was for its time. It was good, but
Yeah, I mean,
it just
compared with today, it's much like what we talked about on the Jungle Cruise in one of our other videos.
Yeah.
Is that in the day and age it came out, which you said, what, 71?
It's 71. Yeah.
71. That everybody's like, oh, that's cool. But you look at videos that were taken like in the 90s, and in today's time frame with what we know we can do now, and it's laughable. But you got to remember, in 71, that was the best they could do.
Yeah.
You know, the animatronics were a little bit jerky, and like most of them weren't even animatronics. Like you said, fish on sticks, they were just static figures. You know, like big fish, but it was like stone.
So I mean, I guess back then they couldn't. I guess even today they wouldn't be able to risk something like that with live fish. But maybe they will. Maybe they would. But
another thing is the reason they took it out is I did a little bit of research on it. Mm-hmm. The sun in Florida, the UV rays just eat up stuff. Well, you got to think, all the attractions at Disney, the UV's beating down on that. Well, the animatronics and other stuff that was in the water only magnifies sunlight. So it was really eating up the animatronics. Yeah. Not only that, but aside from them having to go in and do routine maintenance that they would have to do, because they drained it a few times, the tank itself that the ride was contained in actually leaked. So the ride was doomed from its very beginning.
Yeah. Because
just age would ultimately win out over its, overall appeal.
Yeah, and so hence that's why in September 5th of 1994, that's when they closed its doors. So that was the end of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea at that time. So moving on to our next spot on the list, this ride debuted October 1st, 1982. So our next ride on the list is what?
Well, it is the precursor to Test Track. The original iteration that actually resides in the same building Test Track now does, World of Motion. Now, again, much like 20,000 Leagues, by today's standards, the animatronics and the effects used are a little bit laughable, but like we said, that for their day and age, they did what they needed to. Matter of fact, we watched a video of the World of Motion, and the thing is it took you through the history of human intervention as far as, from foot power to modern day horsepower that we have, of the sports cars. So, some of the details are a little bit off, obviously, but the thing is, they went through, from foot power to riding animals to having carriages to riding trains to cars, and it's just, it was meant to be humorous, and for its day and age, it really was funny, because there's one scene they call the world's first traffic jam, and so you have a horse that's freaking out, and the cart he was pulling is all messing up. There's a couple of supposed to be early 1900s vehicles, and so there's pretty funny stuff that was in this attraction, but eventually it was gutted nearly completely, leaving only the shell of the building for them to eventually put in Test Track. Yeah. Now, one of the things that actually has endured through all these iterations of World of Motion, Test Track 2.0, or Tron Track, whatever you want to call it, is at the end they always had a showroom of the most modern GM vehicles. Mm-hmm. So that
was kind of their way. I'm sure that was kind of their way of trying to sell product as well. Move product by showcasing, well, this is what this is what GM has. So, and then here's the other interesting thing is in the ride too, it also focused on the future and what they assumed what vehicles would be like in the future. So
those were in the showroom.
Those were in the showroom as well. So they had some pretty high-tech looking vehicles. So and that ended up closing down, like we talked about, January 2nd, 1996. So So that was when they officially closed the stores to make way for Test Track.
And one more thing before we move on is I love the fact that if you ever look at the old World of Motion images, like the building, the entrance had this big red, notch cut out it where you would see the ride track coming out of the building and then looping around a center post going back in. That was all that the center post and the ride track were taken out, but that was later enclosed to become the queue line for Test Track. Alrighty, the last one on our list has actually had 3 different iterations, and now that the contract has actually ran out for it, it may actually end up having a 4th. And what is that one, sir?
Well, that one is Spaceship Earth, located in the heart of Epcot Center, right there where the big golf ball is. And this is a unique attraction in the fact that it shows communication from its beginning, from humans' beginning. So it shows that aspect. And it's gone through 3 different narrators. Originally, when it had opened in '82, they had chose Walter Cronkite to be the narrator. Well, at some point during the middle to late '80s, his part got taken out and replaced with Jeremy Irons. And a lot of us know who Jeremy Irons is, and even a lot of us know who Walter Cronkite is, from the CBS News.
And if I may say, whenever they changed over from Cronkite, not only was Cronkite's narration taken out, they redid a lot of the sound effects for the animatronics, the score. I mean, they redid the whole thing. Now, it was the sounds they redid for certain, but I don't know if any of the animatronics themselves were actually updated in the change. Now,
I don't think at that time they would have done it since it was such a new ride, so it probably was just that.
But the boy that's shouting "Civil War is over," the original one with Walter Cronkite. If you ever listen to just even an audio version, that little boy is very annoying. Well, by the time they did the Jeremy Irons update, they replaced it and it was less annoying. So anyway, please continue.
Okay, so then after Irons, they updated it again in let's see, 2007, and they ended up updating it with the voice of Judi Dench. And it wasn't just the voice and the soundtrack, but they also updated the ride itself while adding a few extra scenes in the ride. So
yeah, they took out some scenes.
They took out some scenes to make room for more. So in the updated one, like what I've been to, because I've actually been to both. I've been to the Jeremy Irons one in the '90s, and I've been to the Judi Dench version in 2015. So one of the difference that I noticed was that they got to show what a computer looked like back in the 1960s on into the modern age when people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were building personalized computers for the home. So you kind of got to see that aspect of it. So
Dame Judi Dench, for the time she was doing the narration, the sponsor was Siemens. Now Siemens and Disney their sponsorship didn't end on bad terms. It was very amicable, but they just decided that they were going in a couple different directions and they didn't quite gel. So they just didn't renew the sponsorship. So and it's closed currently, I believe, for refurbishments.
Yeah, it's said on Wikipedia it's in operation, but it could definitely well be closed for renovations very well. Because sometimes Wikipedia isn't always accurate when it comes to certain things.
You can't believe everything on the internet?
Yeah, I know, isn't that shocking? Shocker.
Now, personally, I personally like the Jeremy Irons version better, just because I liked some of the scenes. And don't get me wrong, I love the Judi Dench version, but I think I like the Irons version better, just because some of the audio and the script that he had, oh gosh, I don't know what it is, all of a sudden I can't hardly talk. But I liked just the overall feeling that version of the ride gave, as opposed to the newest version. Anyway.
Yeah. But alright, so that, I guess, does it for this part 2. In case you're wondering, more than likely, there'll probably be a part 3 to this.
We've already come up with 3 different ones for part 3.
As we were coming up for the list with this one, we come up with 3 other rides, and we're like, well, we're making a part 3, so,
And I do want to say this, that here in a few months, you will not see us in the same video together. There will still be videos, do not worry. Cameron's going to he's going to be moving out of state for about a year or so, but don't worry, new videos will keep coming out. Matter of fact, I've talked with Cameron, if you guys have ever seen the Super Carlin Brothers, kind of their format, we may end up following that as kind of something, because they're rarely if ever in the same video.
Yeah.
But don't worry, you will still see us in a few more videos together before he does that.
Absolutely.
And then eventually, hopefully one day, we'll come back and be in the same video together.
Definitely, it'll definitely happen. So, anyways, so this will be Midwest Reviews signing off.
See you next time in another video.